This podcast is part of the Deluxe Edition Network. To find other great shows on the network, head over to deluxeeditionnetwork.com. That's deluxeeditionnetwork.com.
Coffee-fueled stories.
Interrupting all programs.
This is Radio UNK. Radio UNK.
Hello, check it out. Radio UNK. That's right. Mini Mondays coming at ya. Give it a listen. Find out what Radio UNK is all about.
Coffee fitness unicorn. Coffee fitness unicorn. Coffee-fueled stories. Hey, it's me, DJ Unicorn, your pocket DJ, and you're listening to Radio UNK. Let's get amped! So, this week's episode is a transition from Coffee Fitness Unicorn to the two shows that I now have, Coffee Fueled Stories and Radio UNK. So, the reason that the shows are broken into two different programs is because each one specializes in something for that particular show. Coffee Fueled Stories, that is a podcast for authors, independent authors, and it's about chatting with the authors about their writing process and how it is never, ever too late to share your story and follow your dreams. The same is true for Radio UNK, with one exception. It is for artists and musicians who are following their dreams and sharing their stories. The reason that the show is broken into two different aspects is because I have a tendency to deep dive into coffee and food and characters and names for Coffee Fueled Stories. Kind of goes. That's the theme. That's the direction. And then Radio UNK, what that has to do with is sharing the music. And so when I first started doing the podcast, I was talking with anyone and everyone. So when the show was Coffee Fitness Unicorn, Coffee Chats Podcast, which is quite a mouthful, it worked. It worked. I had the unicorn. My persona was Coffee Fitness Unicorn. I wasn't comfortable enough sharing my real name. I hadn't published my book under my real name. So the show has progressed. I've progressed. I've gotten more comfortable with sharing more of my true self as opposed to a persona that I created. Well, I shouldn't say created. It was basically something, I don't want to say I hid behind it, but basically I wasn't able, I've always been my authentic self with you. That has never changed. The difference was just how much of myself I wanted to share, because the internet is a scary place and having your name out there can be very scary. So I finally was able to feel comfortable sharing my real name, and that all had to do with the book. It took me 30 years to get comfortable to share the book, to put myself out there, and I did not want to do it under a pseudonym. I wanted it to be my real name. And so the podcast helped me come out of my shell. So everything has been this transitioning process from blogs, where I had just my short little blogs, to then creating a website, to then creating a podcast, to then turning my blogs, my collection of blogs, into a book, my mini memoir, to putting it out there, and to then breaking down the podcast into 2 different shows. And this goes back to, when I first started the podcast, it was something that I felt I wanted to share I wanted to heal first off. My world had collapsed and I was trying to find my way back. I, wanted to follow my dreams. I wanted to make sure that when I was on my deathbed, that I didn't have any regrets. And so following in that vein, I decided, okay, I want to do a podcast. I'm going to try to do a podcast. And so something that started out as a way for me to turn pain into power, trauma into strength, became something that actually it fostered connections. And I love reading, and it was a way for me to connect with authors, fitness experts. I was able to meet a lot of wonderful people because I wasn't afraid to ask if they would like to be on the show and to have a conversation while drinking coffee or talking about coffee. And so the podcast just kind of went through these iterations, and now it is where it is today. That is Coffee Fitness Unicorn. Coffee Chats Podcast is now Coffee Fueled Stories, a show for independent authors to chat about their writing process and to share unique stories and follow their dreams. The Radio UNK show, which comes out every Monday, New Music Monday, featuring new musicians, that allows me to share music as opposed to sharing music on the Friday show, which is Coffee Fueled Stories. So one is specifically for music and one is for books. The 2 shows are now, they have templates, they have intro songs. Did you notice the intro songs in the beginning? Those intro songs were the progression of the show changing and growing and becoming what it is today. And I feel pretty confident with the direction that the show has gone from and is going to. I've mentioned it before and I'm going to mention it again because it's happening, we just aren't booked yet. But I'm going to go ahead and name drop. I'm going to drop those names right now. So Lena and the Lions should be scheduled, hopefully, in September. That's the plan. We've been trying to connect since January, actually maybe since December of last year. And then Sarah Jane is also supposed to be a guest. I have her on the calendar as well for September. So these 2 artists, like I said, they're up and coming artists. So, and then we had Astronaut Country Club, Jeff. He loved his song, loved his vibe. These are the guests that I'm sharing, I'm hoping to have on the show, and I'm hoping that you can spread the word. Having Renee on the show was awesome. So that is, in a nutshell, what is happening with the show in general. The show is now 2 shows, and it's focused on authors and it's focused on musicians. So Radio UNK, New Music Mondays, and Coffee Fueled Stories, as always, on Friday mornings to kick your weekend off. That being said, thank you for listening. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you for drinking some coffee. As a matter of fact, I'm going to drink some coffee. My throat feels kind of dry. I'm telling you, the summer kicks my butt. Running the air conditioner constantly, like I can actually hear the difference in my voice now. It's very grainy, very guttural sounding to me compared to my normal voice when I'm not having allergy issues. So that being said, I'm going to take a sip of coffee. So bear with me real quick here. See, my throat needed that. See, much better. I can already hear the difference in the lubrication of my throat. On that note, Coffee Fueled Stories is the author show on Fridays, and New Music Monday features are Radio UNK. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to send me a message. Write me on Instagram. You can send me an email, radiounk@yahoo.com. I'm always here. I'm always available. I'm going to sign off, and I'm going to say thank you for listening. Thank you for hanging out. Please tell your friends about the show, Radio UNK, Coffee Fueled Stories. Let me know if you can tell the difference in the very first intro to today's intro. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, or if you don't want to subscribe, you can at least rate and review, tell your friends, share the show, spread the word, and let's get amped!
Let's get amped!